Welcome in, folks, for another episode of the Next Shift podcast. I am your host, Chris, and that is my co-host, Kenny. Kenny, a little technical hiccup there 2-3 minutes ago, right when we first started trying to go live here, but now we're past that. What's going on with you tonight?
I'm good. Like I said, busy week as usual, but I'm excited to be on and talk some hockey for a little bit. The technical difficulties, I'm glad that we're past that. And I'm excited to see what kind of questions that we get for tneght.
Yeah, it should be a good show. Probably a little shorter than normal. I mean, obviously, you and I could sit here and talk hockey all night, and bees are on at 10. No, we're not going to go that long. But, just I wasn't able to get on with Gail last night. She's ill, so hopefully, Gail, you're feeling better. But yeah, Kenny, you and I, we got some NCAA to talk about. There's been quite a few games played in the O at this point. What have you been watching the most of over the last, let's say, couple weeks?
I definitely say the two leagues that I have been watching the most are obviously, since we are in the United States, I've been watching a lot of the NCAA and I've been watching a lot of AHL hockey. I know the AHL just wrapped up their first week.
Yep.
For all the Bruins fans out there, Providence is 2-0. I've been doing Bridgeport 1-0-1, so both having very good starts. Providence having a ton of players in the top 10 in points. Bridgeport having a few as well. So that
I
was
mean,
kind of something.
It helps that some of their top players had 3 and 4 point games in
Yeah.
one game. So
Yeah, obviously Fabian Lysell with a hat trick in a game, Matt Patra with 4 assists. Georgi Merkulov had a good first and second game. Potted the first goal of the season. I think he had not 2 assists, but 2 points first game, 2 points second game. So not bad.
It's been a hot start for both Bruins teams actually.
Yeah.
And then of course you've had, like you said, the NCAA is another primary one. We've had some great games from like Michigan and even BC has played a couple really fun games to watch. I don't think we touched on it. I don't remember what day it had happened, but Dean Letourneau got his first NCAA goal. These fans are going nuts for that. I mean, it was a great shot, bar down. I think most people have seen it by now, but just good to see him get on the board. I think you and I had talked a lot about him in particular for Bees fans. Um, just trying to make that next step this year, and really it looks like he has.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing the confidence in that first game against Quinnipiac was huge. The way that he was playing, the way that he was getting in, and the way that he was making hits, like it just looked like he was a player that's been around, which is good because he has been. This is his second season. Initially, we thought this, so I'm not going to say we, but some people thought that he may be a one and done player. And then after seeing that first season, it just, that timeline obviously got longer. But it was great to see him come out, and it was great to see him over the offseason talk about how he's not allowing the stuff that the fans are saying or anything else to get to him, which is huge. But it was a beautiful
Anyone who thought he was a one and done though was not paying attention to anybody with merit. I'll put it that way. Dom and I spend many hours talking specifically just about Dean and his game, and kept reiterating over and over and over again. Project player, high upside, project player, probably going to need 4 or 5 years in the NCAA. I'm glad to see that he's making the next step. This is what we wanted to see. But yeah, anybody who thought he was going to be a one and done in college is just, they're not paying attention to the reputable places that know the game well enough.
Yeah, and I think one of Dean's main skills is his shot. I think he has an incredible shot, and last season he didn't put it on display much, and I'm glad that this season, he's starting to do it more. And the more shots you have on net, the more chance you have to score. But that was a beautiful shot against Minnesota, and I was interested to see how the Bruins guys would do against Minnesota as they struggled that first week. I mean, I know the game was only 4-3 against Quinnipiac, but I honestly thought that the score wasn't as telling as the game was. I really felt like that was more of like a 4-1 game. As a Quinnipiac fan, I never really felt like BC was in it, really. I never really was worried. Obviously, the power play went very well for Boston College that game, and when they went and took on Minnesota, that's a huge thing because that those both of those teams were kind of, you know, they're both blue blood schools and they both kind of struggled out of the gate. Minnesota losing to Michigan Tech and almost losing to Michigan Tech the first night. They ended up being 1-1, and I think technically they finished that stretch being 1-2-1.
Yeah.
But they did end up winning that shootout, which technically doesn't count. But they had the win, but they don't have the win technically. It pretty much counts as a tie in the NCAA.
Yeah, I hate how, like, then why do the shootout? Like, it's so stupid.
Yeah, it usually only happens with non-conference games for some reason. Usually when you get into the conference season, they don't do the shootout, which is weird. So it's basically just you want to do a shootout? Sure. Okay, there you go. That's a shootout. Has no meaning, doesn't help the rankings at all, doesn't help anything. It ends as a tie. So
Yeah, and in general, this is going to be a very interesting college season all around. I know we're focusing heavily on BC. One, they're local to us. They're easy to watch around here. They've got six B's prospects on that team, so we've got multiple reasons to be watching them. Um, but across the board, the NCAA has been fantastic to watch. I know a lot of people are tuning into Penn State for Gavin McKenna watch to see exactly what a team in the NHL will be getting in Gavin McKenna. Um, how have you felt? I know we obviously haven't watched as much McKenna as we have other, but I know obviously we're both watching as much as we can. What have you thought of McKenna so far in his NCAA couple games? Like, he's putting up points, but
yeah, a lot of them have been on the power play. The Penn State is a very good team. They have a ton of great players. It was a little bit tough to watch them lose to Clarkson, especially with the team that they have and the team that Clarkson has, and the goalie that Clarkson has, Shane Soderwall. I mean, shout out to him, former NA3 player, played D3 at Curry College, and then ended up moving to the D1 ranks. He was unbelievable at Curry College, which is local to Boston. It was weird seeing that. It was a very odd night in college hockey because three teams got upset at home. Three top 10 teams got upset at home, and then obviously the
yeah,
Minnesota game. So it was a very good night. Unfortunately, we weren't really able to watch any of those games because we were live watching the Bruins game that night, I believe.
yeah, we were watching with Gail.
So we ended up not being able to watch any of those games. I know that the next game against Clarkson, McKenna was kept off the score sheet, and he didn't really have many that first game. But again, it's 4 games in. Um, it's so tough at this point, especially I can't imagine being a 17-year-old playing in the NCAA against guys who are literally 24, 25, and that age kind of grows more now that they have the CHL players over.
Yeah,
But I mean, from what I've seen so far, it was a lot of the power play, which I know people are concerned with, but there's no way I would knock him off that top spot yet just because of that. It will be an adjustment. And I think the most difficult part is people kind of expect this to be Gavin McKenna's team. And the reality is they have so many good players and there's only one puck. So
yeah.
there's only so many goals that can go around. I mean, they did score 9 goals that weekend against Clarkson, and unfortunately, I think only McKenna got it only on the score sheet for 1 or 2 of them. But they have some incredible players, and it doesn't really shock me. Obviously, it's a little bit weird that he's not on the score sheet. But again, like when you have guys like Aiden Fink and Charlie Serrato and JJ Weebush, like the team's good. It's a good team. Like
Yeah, and if you look across NCAA, Serrato and Weebush lead with 11 and 10 points respectively. Like, they lead all of college hockey. So, like you said, people expect this to become Gavin McKenna's team just because he showed up. Let's not forget he is still a freshman, and that's not how college puck works. Just because you might have the most skill. First of all, hockey players in general look at it in terms of how can I help my team. So to sit there and expect him to come in and be like, I want to lead this team in scoring, I want to do this, I want to do that, that's not how most hockey players are built mentally. And the fact that he's not leading the team honestly makes me have more belief in him developing overall. Just because he isn't prioritizing, he's prioritizing his development, but he's also putting team need ahead of self need. Because he knows if he can go off for countless points, he's going to not only get that number one draft pick, but secure it even more. He'd rather win hockey games.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing to think about, right? He's a guy that's willing to put the team first. And again, I'm sure he doesn't care. I'm sure it sucks. He's not used to not putting up points in a game, but I feel like it's a part of the NCAA game, right? And let's be honest, like he's still over a point per game, right? So I'm not concerned. That is incredible to still be over a point per game as a freshman, right? So it's just not that big of a deal. I feel like people are blowing it out of proportion, making this, that, and the like. It's 4 games. He's over a point per game. Like that's I feel like people are kind of undervaluing that because other players on that Penn State team have been so good, but he's
Are
still well.
you are you worried at all? Like, when do you start worrying that he's only scoring on the man advantage, though?
I don't know. I feel like that is something that I will start worrying about when you get to about 10 games in. I feel like that's about a third of the season, a fourth of the season, depending on how far you go in these tournaments. I know it seems like a big sample size, but it really isn't. It's only 3, 4, 5 weeks of games in the NCAA. The season does fly like that. I
Yeah.
would say I'd be concerned around that 10 game mark if the only points he was putting up were those on the power play. I mean, I would say actually I get concerned at 8 games considering who Penn State will be playing the next few weeks. They're playing LIU and they're playing Stonehill. Those should be two easy opponents. 4 games, McKenna should be able to not only have a ton of ice time, regardless of what line he's on, he should be able to get a ton of goals, should be on the score sheet. I mean, these teams aren't great compared to these Big Ten opponents. But again, I didn't think Clarkson was that great either. And they ended up giving Penn State a run for their money. The first game they won, and the second game they were up 2-0 before giving up 5 straight, unfortunately. But I feel like after that, you want to get into that rhythm of scoring goals 5-on-5 before you enter conference play, and then obviously after the Stonehill series, they will be going into conference play against Ohio State. I feel like getting your footing under you with all these easy teams early should be the priority for McKenna.
So I'm not even going to worry about it right now. Like, I want to continue to watch his game over game. Michael, I do see your comment. We'll touch on some B stuff coming up down the road here. I promise I won't forget your comment. Um, but I want to continue to see how his game is. Um, I don't really care that he's only scoring on the power play for two reasons. One, he's only 17. He's a 17-year-old freshman, barely 18. I don't remember exactly when his birthday is, but he might be 18 within the last 2 or 3 weeks or whatever. But he's a 17-year-old kid, freshman year, Penn State. Like, first and foremost, he's finding the opportunities that are there, which is kind of the most important thing. Like, if he were in the NHL or any player on your favorite NHL team, if they're only scoring goals on the power play, but they are consistently scoring goals on the power play, consistently getting involved in power play scoring, and the opportunities are there. If your team can continue to get on the power play, how worried are you overall? Like, you need those goals anyway. The goals all count the same. So, like, if I'm drafting him this year and he comes out with 15 goals and I don't know 35 assists, like, I'm gonna sit there and they're all on the power play, or 90% of them on the power play. I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna say, look, go back for another year. Like, or if you come out, you're probably playing a year in the AHL. Like, it just means he's not NHL ready. Like, and that's okay. Again, he is barely 18 years old.
I think the problem with that is so many people have put this, McDavid kind of like aura around McKenna, making it seem like he is, and again, it's just, it really, when you look at it, the whole grand scheme of things, the end of the day, the team just wants him to be productive in the NHL. If it takes another year of college, it's not the end of the world. I think they were so dead set on him being the number one overall draft pick, which I think he still is as of
Yeah,
now.
we'll talk about that in a minute too.
It's just people need to relax a little bit. Like it's not a big deal. And like I said, he's over a point per game, 4 games in. So people are worrying about it being on the power play, and I understand. But it's also, he's producing. He had a good first week against Arizona State, which matters to me more than not having a great 2 games against Clarkson. He showed up when it mattered. He scored the game-winning goal the second night against Arizona State. That stuff is it's important. He showed up, he's making the plays. Everything that I've heard out of Penn State, everything that I've watched from Penn State has been positive. It's been positive stuff around McKenna, even though it's only been on the power play that he's been producing points. Like I said, give it a few more weeks. It's 4 games. Like it's people are jumping to conclusions already. I know we're gonna talk about it, already knocking him off that first pick. It's just people need to relax. It's just not a big deal
Yeah,
yet.
I
Relax.
until his teammates sit there and go, God, we need this kid to score 5-on-5. Like, he needs to do like until his teammates start complaining about how he's producing. I'm not all that worried about it, to be honest with you. Um, and I also want to remind people, Connor McDavid's rookie season was when he was 19, and he was barely over a point per game pace. Do you not think that Connor McDavid would have benefited from a year in the NCAA at 18 or 19 years old? Get
Well, hey,
used to some
listen,
physicality. Like
listen. If
it's just a different game.
nah, I'm, I don't care. If listen, let's not act like just barely over a point per game at 19 years old isn't incredible in the NHL. Like he probably shouldn't have went to college. He would have. I mean, maybe the year before he ended up going to the NHL. Sure, maybe, but yeah, there's. I mean, let's not downplay, just barely a point per game at 19 in the NHL. That's a
Oh, I'm not. No, no,
huge
no, definitely
milestone.
not. Yeah, definitely not trying to downplay it, but that's my point though. Is like other players have struggled at this young age at every level. So like, let him learn. We just talked about Dean Letourneau. You could look at his teammate Charlie Serrato. Last year he had 42 points in 38 games. That was his freshman season, and now he's got 11 points in 4 games, and is leading the NCAA. So like, and by the way, Serrato's only 2 years age-wise older than him, and he's got 20 pounds on this kid. Size is definitely going to play a part of it. So that's the other thing
Also,
is
I
he's
mean,
so
McKenna,
small.
yeah, and McKenna's not has it. What the week against Clarkson, he was not on the first line, so
Right.
he's playing a little bit less. Like, not that it really matters, but he is playing a little bit less minutes than Serrato. And I mean, let's just be honest, Serrato's a beast, and he's been there before. This isn't new. He's walking in, and he was already incredible on a Penn State team that wasn't that good, and he dominated, and he took that team on. Him and Aiden Fink took that team on their back, and they basically brought them to the Frozen Four. I mean, Charlie Serrato scored the game winner against UConn to bring them to the Frozen Four. So, it's just those guys have been there. Those guys are doing it, and something very, very simple that I just wanted to put out there: the U.S. select team, the college team that they are putting together of all the players who are not eligible or players that are not eligible to play in the World Juniors anymore. Um, they are putting together a team for the Spangler Cup, and they announced 5 more players. That being Charlie Serrato being on that list, who is a Canes prospect, and then they obviously have Danny Nelson, New York Islanders prospect out of Notre Dame. Eric Polkamp, solid Sharks defenseman. He's out of the University of Denver, and then they have Cole Nubble, who is a Flyers prospect coming from Notre Dame as well. And then, like I said, they have Charlie Serrata, who I mentioned. And then, of course, one of our favorites that we've talked about a lot was TJ Hughes coming from Michigan.
Yes.
So he's going to be on that team as well. It'll be interesting to see how these players perform at, against professionals. These guys are going to be playing against, professional teams over in Europe. So this will be a fun team to watch.
It absolutely will be. And I know you made a comment before, and I want to ask this question, but then transition to some of Michael's questions that I see popping in. You mentioned Gavin McKenna still being that number one overall pick, and I agree with you. I don't think we have a large enough sample size. I've started to see media talking heads, we'll call them, start trying to go for the clicks and start saying Keaton Verhoff is now the number one pick or is now the favorite or he's making a push for it. What obviously between the two, I think we would both agree that a right shot defenseman with size who can move the puck the way Verhoff does is the more rare commodity. So I mean, what does McKenna have to do or what does Verhoff have to do to take over that number one spot? I mean, we saw it last year. I know Michael's mentioned James Hagens in the comments. James Hagens last year was the consensus number one pick for so long, played another year in college, and then fell to the Bruins at 7. I'm not saying McKenna's going to fall 7 picks, but what could make him fall out of that number one spot in your eyes? I think most people are looking at him as the number one pick with it by a mile, that there's not enough that he can do to lose it.
Well, let me just state the obvious. Gavin McKenna has played 4 games. Keaton Verhoff has played 2 games. Okay? We are literally talking about Verhoff playing 1 weekend of NCAA hockey, which was great, by the way. I caught one of the games, caught Will Zellers' first goal. I'm glad I got to watch that. And McKenna, who's played 2 weeks and one against a ranked team where he did very well. You didn't hear any complaints out of that first week from McKenna. Nobody cared that all of his points were on the power play. Nobody cared at all, right? So what I would definitely agree. Having a defenseman like Verhoff is a more sought after commodity. It feels like those type of defensemen don't go to market often. It feels like you have to draft them to be able to get those types of defensemen on your team. But I mean, Gavin McKenna, he still is Gavin McKenna. He's doing great things. I feel like both players are playing great right now. And some people, they want to make the headway. And I'm not saying that it can't happen. I'm just saying as of right now, I still believe McKenna is that first pick. I think something that will drop him down is if he continues to only score on the power play or continues to only have 1 point on the weekend. And I honestly think that this could happen relatively soon if the next 2 weeks don't end up turning out the way that McKenna hopes. And it doesn't turn out like, the next 4 games, if he continues to have, 1 point per 2 games, if he averages a half a point a game, again, especially against these types of teams, I feel like he could go down depending on Verhoff's ranking, but it's so hard to tell. Verhoff's played 2 games against teams that aren't very, well, technically they played 3 games. They played the University of Manitoba, which was an exhibition. Verhoff played well. And then they played St. Thomas twice, a team that isn't very, offensively great. So it's not like he had to do a ton of work on the back end, even though he did play very well from what I've seen. And he was getting points as well, which is great. But this is such a terrible way to figure out, this is such a terrible stretch to say that one person's better than another because it's non-conference games. So they're either playing incredible teams, they're playing some of the best teams in the country, or they're playing scrubs. I shouldn't say they're playing, NCAA Division I players are good. Much better
NCAA. They're playing NCAA Division I scrubs.
Yes, they're playing bad teams for the NCAA, right? I am not putting too much stock in how Gavin McKenna plays against Clarkson. I'm not putting too much stock on how Keaton Verhoff plays against St. Thomas. That's just my opinion. We just have to see more.
I think for me, what it'll come down to, because I do think that McKenna's stock may fall throughout the course of the year. I mean, one we've seen it before. Like I said, Higgins is an example of that. But and we've seen it countless times beyond that too. We know the premium chip that a right shot defenseman is, especially one who's also only 17 years old, but is built. I mean, that dude is 6'4" and packs a punch, hitting you. And again, he's only 17. So, like, there is significant value. I think it comes down to the team who possesses that number one pick. I think that's what it really will ultimately come down to because there are plenty of teams like look at San Jose for instance. Why do they like I get it, it's Gavin McKenna, but they have a ton of forward prospects. Add the defenseman. If you can add a defenseman to the group that they have with Celebrini, Smith, and all the young guys they've been building up since Colin Graff. I mean, there's quite a few of them there. But if you're a team like Pittsburgh, you need everything, and that's where you take the name that people know people have been looking for the center that you've been able to build your franchise around in the past. Like you need your next Crosby, your next Lemieux. Like that's what McKenna can be for you. Like if it were Boston, right? Boston builds from the back out. They would likely want to favor the defenseman because they can't get enough defensemen in their system. But they're also good at producing defensemen. How many times have we seen a talented forward come through their system and it just doesn't work? I'd have more confidence if I'm a Bruins fan in watching them develop the defenseman. So, like, there are aspects to that part of the equation as well. So, I just think it comes down to, I mean, nobody saw Utah taking Tisha Ginla a couple years ago. What was it, fourth or seventh? What was it, fourth
Yeah, it
overall?
was. I think it was like fifth or sixth, and then it was like Montreal had like the 13th pick, and they were beating the drum like, "Oh, let's take Tisha Ginla," and then he ends up going fifth, and the fans are like, "Well, what the hell?"
And then Beckett Seneke went third out of
Even Beckett
nowhere.
Seneca was like
What?
surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The look on his face, he's like, wait, what? Me? Huh?
yeah.
Like, and then, I mean, Caden Lindstrom falling to three. I don't know if I'd say falling, but, like, I don't think that was as expected. And then, of course, he has the injury. So, like, eyes have fallen off of him a little bit. But,
You can
I
go
mean,
way back. You can go way back to like a Kale McCarr, where even guys on his team were like, "Who the hell did we just draft out of the AJHL?" I didn't even
right?
know we drafted out of the AJHL. So,
Right?
I think it's just I agree with you. It really is what the team needs, and I don't think you can go wrong if either one of those guys go one or two. Like it would not shock me one bit.
And I think we'll see a little bit of movement too, because if it's San Jose with the first overall pick, who's got who's got the second pick, who's got the third pick, let's say, where if they're you know what I mean? Like if just there's maneuverability if someone sits there and goes, we really want to have McKenna and we want to trade up to number one to get him so that, you know, whoever's second doesn't take him because we know you want the defenseman. We'll give you our defenseman who we currently have because you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
Anaheim, as an example, trading away Jackson Lacombe so they can add Gavin McKenna to their picks with a first overall. Like you could see a trade like that unfold just because a team looks at one of those two and goes, "We need that person." Like it just it happens that way. I do want to get to some of Michael's questions though. He mentions I just got to find my cursor here. Here we go. Real quick for the Bruins game tonight, he mentions Lohrei should sit for Jordan Harris tonight. Jordan Harris is someone you and I talked a bit about, just because of that seventh defenseman spot, Providence or not. I've loved his game so far up in Boston. What do you think?
yeah. Unfortunately, I was on my way back from vacation on Monday, so I wasn't able to catch a lot of that Tampa Bay game, which I heard he did score his first NHL goal. So congratulations to him. I know people were thrilled because he is a Northeastern alum. So, but I was impressed with this game during the preseason. I thought it just got better and better over time. I honestly thought that nobody played that well to begin, and then Harris really just stepped up and took it. Um, you know, having that solid seventh defenseman is just it's huge, especially when you have an injury like Hampus Lindholm. Like when you have those guys that may be out for 1 or 2 games, having a defenseman that can step in and score goals and still be serviceable is huge. Last season, they had Michael Callahan, who was good, don't get me wrong, but he really wasn't a guy that was going to step up and produce any points. He was more just kind of that stay-at-home, safe kind of choice, and that still takes a little while to develop, especially at the NHL level. He was a very good AHL defenseman, and we talked about this before, where you have guys like Vinny Lettieri and Georgi Merkulov, two guys who led. I think Lettieri was leading, one of the top three in points, and Merkulov was, I think, top three in assists at the time, and yet the AHL coaches still decided that Michael Callahan's defense was better than both of those guys' offense, which is huge. It's very telling. But having a guy like Jordan Harris play in the lineup, any need somebody, it's huge. And I don't know if Lodi should sit for Jordan Harris. I mean, there's still going to be that learning curve for Lori. I mean, last season obviously didn't help development wise. He was thrown into the fire way too early, and I think we saw that especially. But yeah, no, I've been happy with Jordan Harris's game thus far.
So we also already know that Hampus is out tonight still. He's not he's back to skating. He's skating in the line rushes and stuff at morning skate, but he is not a go for the game tonight. So you're definitely not pulling Lori out of the lineup when you already have Harris going in for Lindholm. I do think Harris is going to be a great rotational guy. Um, I don't want to say the injury is a good thing because obviously you're not rooting for anyone to get hurt. I do think it's good that Harris was able to get into a game so soon and establish himself as someone who likely can play 70 games this year for the Bruins. So if you can get 60 to 70 games from him, that means you can rotate guys like Lori, Lindholm, Yoki Haru. You can rotate those guys out of the lineup, give them rest, give them time to look at the game from the ninth floor. You have that. It's a luxury to have, and you have it because Harris's game has been so good. Now, maybe you only end up being able to use them 40 or 50 times this year, so you really need to see a little bit more. I'm glad he's going to be going against a team like Vegas tonight, so you can really see him against one of the league's top potential offenses. Right now, I'm still calling all of them potential because we're less than 5 games in. No one is going to sit here and have great analytics because one game they scored 8 goals and the next they were shut out. I mean, look at do you really think we're going to go all year with the New York Rangers scoring no goals at home? Like, that's not a reasonable projection. So, like, this offense that Vegas has is potentially one of the best in the league. I really want to see how Harris adapts to that. They are not even what Tampa Bay has. They are way better than what Tampa Bay has. Tampa Bay has a couple great players, Hagel, Kucherov, but Cirelli is no Mark Stone. If you look at the lineup, the depth that Vegas has, they roll all four. Tampa rolls 2.5, basically. So we'll see how that goes. Michael also says that Higgins is getting a little tough criticism. It seems same as Michael Misa. Didn't Misa just make his NHL debut like 2 days ago?
Yeah, his first game was against Carolina in that game
That
that
was
was.
his first game.
Yes, that
Yeah,
was.
the Brandon Bussey victory.
Yes, it was. Oh God! So Gavin McKenna, Michael Misa's first game overshadowed by Brandon Bussey getting his first win. If you told me if you said that was going to be the case at the beginning of the year, I would have laughed in your face. But I cannot believe that is the world that we live in. But congrats to Brandon Bussey, man. So
He didn't look great in the game. He got the result. We are a results oriented business in the game of hockey. So I am not taking that away from him. But if you go back and watch, he is shaky all game. He is questionable on some of his reads. He is extremely athletic and a very big person. So that really helps him move in it laterally and make some of those saves. And in some cases, he just got lucky. He had one that hit the nub end of his stick. Like, he didn't know where that puck was. That is puck luck. It happens. Again, the result is good, and that's going to help build his confidence. I don't know him well enough to say whether or not his reads or his shakiness are a complete confidence issue. But if they are, getting that dub under his belt is going to give him a building block that's necessary for him to get better and better and be a depth piece, a quality depth piece at the NHL level.
Uh, I thought that he got better throughout the game. I saw that second shot from Ryan Reeves from like the corner, and I was like, oh my God, this team's going to put up 10 on Bussy. He ended up getting better throughout the game. So, I mean,
Well,
listen,
there
it's
was
not
only
his.
so much better he had to be. They only got like 15 or 17 shots on him all game. He
I know.
wasn't tested.
Well, I texted you. I was like, oh my God, did you see that shot from Reeves? Why isn't this team just throwing the kitchen sink at Bussy? And they ended up not doing that. Um, but again, and I, this isn't taking anything away from Bussy. He has a win in the NHL, and that's what matters. It doesn't matter how you get there. They don't ask how, they ask how many. But I will say, like, I'm not incredibly impressed that the Carolina Hurricanes beat the Sharks. Also, the Carolina Hurricanes put up 5 goals that game, which makes Bussy's job a million times easier.
Yeah.
Um, and again, that's not taking anything
And,
away from Bussy.
Nedeljkovic looked worse than
Yeah,
Bussy.
I,
So
and again, not taking anything away from Bussy. Congratulations on his first win. Like, it's good to see somebody from Providence last season, especially with the season that he had, and be in the NHL and find ways to win. That's huge, and that's big props to him. But like I said, people kind of went a little bit crazy over it, and I am not that. And I hate to be this way. I know Chris and I are usually having to be this. We have to beat the DiPietro drum to like the end here. Like, I hate saying stuff like this, but also like people are making it out to be something bigger than it is, I think.
let me put it this way: I think Brandon Bussy's next start could actually be for the San Jose Sharks because Nedeljkovic has looked like absolute crap. Kochetkov is going to be healthy sooner rather than later. They don't need Brandon Bussy to make another. They've got the Ducks coming up on tonight. That's a late game tonight, and then they play again on Saturday and Monday. That's Kings and Vegas, and then they play again on Thursday of next week, Colorado, and then Saturday Dallas. You're not giving Bussy any of those games, not with that kind of time off. So that means all 4 of those games are going to Anderson or Kochetkov if he gets healthy. So as soon as Kochetkov gets healthy, Brandon Bussy's on the waiver wire. As soon as he's on the waiver wire, a team that desperately needs goaltending, and the Sharks are looking like they need someone instead of Nedeljkovic. Nedeljkovic is looking like Georgiev did last year. So he's ready. He's on a straight shot for the waiver wire himself. Claim Bussy, throw Nedeljkovic on the waiver wire. Again, is it a perfect solution for them? No. We know how they feel about Yaroslav Askarov, but he can't start every game. You're not going to start him every game. And that's the
I'm
kind of opportunity that a Brandon Bussy or a Michael DiPietro needs to be able to gain NHL level experience.
I mean, my God, you look at those first 3 games from Nedeljkovic. Oh my goodness, absolutely brutal. I think the I don't know how I would react at the NHL level as a player, especially after that first game where you have Vegas on the ropes. You're an empty net goal away. You just couldn't bury, and then Nedeljkovic gives up a goal.
I
Not
think that
necessarily,
game broke him.
yeah, not necessarily all his fault, but it's such a kick in the balls when that happens. Like, to the point where you're just like, man, that is such San Jose Shark, luck. And I hate saying that because they've hit on a ton of draft picks, but like that's how I expected San Jose Sharks game to go, really. And then the next game, if your team puts up 6, you need to win the game. I don't give a shit how many breakaways. I don't care how many shots on goal. You need to find a way to win that game, and he doesn't do it. And I didn't even really touch on the absolute blunder awful, disgusting, terrible giveaway that Steve Dangle is still yelling about from his house on, that game against Vegas where he just gifted that game away. And then the game against Carolina, where just like this is a game that is winnable because you see the goaltender in the other crease and you see that second shot on net, and you're like, man, this goalie does not look like this is going to be, this could really be a win, and they just didn't do it.
Yeah, and he also didn't get, and this is where I sit there and I go, I think they're going to need to move on from him because of the team as well, because the team is not playing with an iota of confidence in front of them anymore, because they didn't throw anything at Brandon Bussey. They were so worried about trying to defend their own zone and their own goal because they have no trust in Nedeljkovic back there that they didn't throw anything on a first-time NHL starting goaltender.
Yeah, I mean, but it makes sense. Like, yeah, you
And
look
and
at the
and let's be
game.
honest, Brandon Bussey wasn't coming in as this high profile, like first round draft pick kid who is this can't miss goaltending prospect. That's not who Brandon Bussey was. This was essentially some scrub off the waiver wire who's trying to fight for his hockey life, getting an NHL start, and you threw 15 shots at the guy.
When Carolina announced their starting goalie, people commented. The two most comments I would say, like what I saw the most was who and scheduled loss.
Yup.
Those are the two comments that took most of the feed under the Carolina Hurricanes announcing Brandon Bussey as a starter, and they end up winning 5-1. It feels like, the Sharks feel like they can't make a mistake because it's going to end up in the back of their net. And then you watch, and it's like, well, even if they don't make a mistake, it looks like the puck is going back in the back of the net anyways. And that's such a horrible way to have guys like Eklund, Celebrini, Misa. Like, imagine having rookies afraid to make mistakes because they know it's going to be in the back of their net. You just can't play like that. You have
Yeah.
to, even if you keep Nedeljkovic for the rest of the season, you can't play like that. You need to have some confidence. So it's
That,
unfortunate.
that that's the thing is, if I'm Warsofsky, their coach, I'm going right back to Nedeljkovic for the next game, and I'm having the conversation with my team, basically going, you can't hang him out to dry. Like, this has to be a reset. We have to be confident in him. You have to show him your confidence as the coach, but basically his length of rope is the next game. Because if he can't bounce back and at least play well, he doesn't have to get the win. San Jose's games right now are not about wins and losses. It's about building the team going forward. And basically, if he comes out and he crumbles, he can't do it, or the team comes out and they basically show we can't play in front of him, you have to find a way to move on from him. The fit just isn't there.
Yeah, and again, we look at the Sharks' depth in goalies. I mean, they have some, but it's just they're not there yet. You need a guy that can take a crease in the NHL and give the team a chance to win.
Oh yeah.
I don't really know if Bussy or DiPietro is going to be that guy. I mean,
No,
playing
it's just
Sharks.
I would say Bussy more or less based on the fact that he's going to be available as soon as Kochetkov gets healthy. But why do you think the Tampa Bay Lightning traded Phoenix Copley back to LA for future considerations? Because they knew going into that LA wanted him. They didn't want to take him from LA. They knew they needed reassurance in case Vasilevsky's injury was more severe than initially thought. And so they basically had that gentleman's agreement of, we will make sure you get your goalie back, I promise. They flew him out, they used him for a couple weeks, and then they flew him back and said, future considerations is good enough. You know what I mean? Like, it'll be a round of golf between the general managers that what's his name in LA pays for. You know what I mean? Like, that'll complete the trade. It's that stupid. But if Copley hits the waiver wire, he ain't falling to the Kings. Like the Sharks, one would be stupid not to take him, and two would be stupid to not allow him to allow him to land back in LA. You just nabbed him from your biggest rival. That would be like the Boston Bruins nabbing Dobish from Montreal because they had to put him on waivers. Like, it's going to help your team where you have a need. Obviously, the Bruins are only doing that if they have depth needs in goal, but it also screws over one of your biggest rivals in your division.
Makes
Who's
it so
doing
much
better
sweeter.
than you? So, like, he Copley wasn't, and he's a veteran that type of team needs. Like, no, don't go get Alex Gorgiev because it's just not. If you were going to do that, you might as well have just re-signed him in the offseason. There's not a fit there. That's okay. You moved on, but that's where you need a veteran guy. You need. I'm trying to. I don't even know who'd be available. Maybe David Rittich out of the Islanders. I think he's with the Islanders right now. Like,
Yeah, he's the backup as of now. I think he is going to get the start tonight. Islanders 0-4 right now, or 0-3. Could be 0-4 after tonight, which is a huge issue. I've like I said, just doing Bridgeport stuff. I've heard not great things about a lot of what's going on in Bridgeport, in New York right now for the Islanders. So I don't
yeah, there's a
know.
lot of issues.
They brought, and again, it just depends because they'll have no choice once Varlamov comes back, and that just depends on
Exactly.
how long that's going to take. Obviously, when you look at it before the season, you'd probably want to run with Nedeljkovic, and now it's just like you have to nab anybody who is a qualified NHL backup to
Yeah,
be
I mean that's
the
where
parts.
other guys like Tristan Jarry, his name might start to circle the drain there. Philip Grubauer in Seattle, like you could see a Nedeljkovic for Grubauer, with other pieces thrown in there type of deal because Seattle also has to do something. Joey Decord is keeping them in games that they have no business being in, but they can't do anything else past that. So there's going to be some real goaltending shakeups overall, and that's why I mentioned Michael DiPietro. I know he's through waivers, so the Bruins don't have to worry unless they call him up for 30 days or he plays 10 games for them. But something's going to give. Zazacek looked pretty good in one of his starts, not so great in his other. So, right now they're going to hang on to DiPietro. I don't see them moving him since he's through waivers. Personally, I know you know this. I don't care what they do with him. I don't see him as an NHL goaltender. I would love to see him get an opportunity with San Diego, with San
San
Jose.
Jose.
I was thinking the Gulls,
Yeah.
because they've got some goaltending depth developing in Anaheim too. But I'd love to see him get an opportunity with San Jose, where he's able to get used to the NHL pace, and then potentially springboard his career in the NHL off of that. But we'll see. Any other thoughts before we circle back to Michael's next comment about Hagens?
No, I think we could combine two of these right here where he says Hagens is getting a little tough criticism, and then he ends up saying too many Bruins insiders are putting Hagens as the second coming. He has 2 years left to develop. You know, I didn't watch a lot of the series against Minnesota. I thought that he played fairly well against Quinnipiac. He's still a point per game. He's not, I don't think he has a goal yet, but it's so early in the season. It's so early to be, saying anything about him being the second coming or saying that he's not ready for Boston yet. It's just too early for people to be getting on their high horse and saying definitively that Veerhoff is over McKenna right now, or McKenna's not playing well, or Hagen.
Hagen sucks.
Yeah, like it's just so early. They've played 3 games, and it's not like he's been, he's been left off the score sheet. He has 3 assists. He is a point per game. It's like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Right, and to say Hagens has a year left, 2 years left, whatever, we don't know. We need to see how this season plays out. The NCAA can be tricky in the sense that, yeah, sure, today it looks like he might need 2 years, and as of right now, I might agree with that assessment. But like you said, it's been what, 3 games, 4 games? Like, you can still count on one hand how many games it's been. So until we get a larger sample size this season, and until we see where he's at the end of the season, like, yeah, I would say this year in the NCAA, probably next year in Providence, and then he's ready for the NHL. However, he could take his time at BC. Um, I'll throw Jack's comment up here. He says, "Let Higgins take all the time he needs." Absolutely. I mean, I don't expect him to need 2 more years at BC and then another year in the AHL. He very easily could come up at the end of the season, turn pro, get a small handful of games in the American Hockey League, and then be NHL ready next year and make the team out of camp. Is that what I'm expecting? I don't know. See me at the end of the season. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and
where are the
also,
weaknesses in his game? Where's the roster for the Bruins stand? You know?
yeah, and again, like, this is also very new territory for Higgins. This
Yep.
is not Gavin
Wait, you
McKenna.
mean he's never been drafted before?
No. Well, I'm talking about this season at BC. I probably should have been more specific because
No, I
now
know where you're going with it.
this is now his team. Like we talked about before with McKenna, this isn't McKenna's team. Penn State is not McKenna's team that he's leading. Higgins is leading this Boston College team. And also, it's a huge adjustment. Last season, you're playing with Ryan Leonard and Gabe Perreault, some of the best to do it in college ever, and now you're kind of on your own here. You are the guy that they need to go to win games. When you start losing and you're only putting up a point per game and you're supposed to be their team leader, people start looking at you. And it's just, like I said with McKenna, like I said with Verhoff, like I said now with Higgins, it's literally 2 to 4 games into the season. We still have like 30 more games to play. Like, I'm just looking at how they're playing right now. I'm not looking at the point total. I'm not looking at, if they have a rough weekend, it's just not a big deal. What's going to be more interesting for me, especially going back to McKenna and Higgins, is just how they're going to respond. Let's not forget, James Higgins didn't play scrubs yet. They have not played Division I bad teams. They played Minnesota and Quinnipiac, right? He's played 2 very, very strong programs and 2 defensively strong programs with 2 very solid goalies. Like, he's played very good teams. I think saying anything about Boston College or Higgins yet is just, it's completely just out of bounds at this point. It's not even a fair assessment. He's going to get easier games playing in Hockey East, and that's telling, especially with the schedule that they've had so far. So I'm just not letting it happen, but it's good to see you, Jack.
Yeah, thanks for jumping in, and we look forward to any other comments you have here. And then adds in RPI up next for BC. Yeah, I mean, it's also Higgins' second NCAA season, so he's now the target, as you mentioned. Gabe Perreault's not there anymore. Ryan Leonard isn't there anymore. Like, he is the guy, but he's also the target. So he's the one that teams are going to be game planning to shut down. How does he adapt to that? We need more than 3 or 4 games to see that. And then I'm pretty sure to answer Michael's question, why Boston didn't send Loke back to Moncton. I'm pretty sure he aged out of Canadian juniors this year. I'd have to double check. Do you know off the top of your head, was he too old to play in juniors again?
I think he's 19 right now.
As far as I'm aware, he is 19, and I don't think he could have played in juniors. So he had to turn pro, basically. They have sent him down to the Mariners. I don't think they've called him back up yet.
No.
Um,
Also, the Bruins did sign Loke at the middle of last season while he was in Moncton. So I feel like this was the plan all along, regardless of what kind of happened. Also, there is rules in the QMJHL, like about how many overagers you can have, and I believe
exactly.
Moncton is probably over that because I don't know, is Denoye still on that roster, or I don't know. I know.
No, Caleb Denoye? No,
Interesting.
I don't think so.
I know that they have Nico Turnus out of Connecticut. Love them.
Oh, you know what? Denoye, I think, is still on that roster, actually.
So I don't know. I believe there's a
but
couple of
he's
guys.
18.
So he's not overage yet, but
He's not an overager, but Loke, yeah, he's still with the Maine Mariners, which is where he realistically belongs because you want to be able to bring him up to Providence if there's an issue with injuries or anything like that. Like he could be in Providence by the end. Yeah, he is 19, so he would have been ineligible or he would have been an overager in
yeah.
a drafted overager too. So Dom, next time I chat with him, I'll have to find out if Loke would have even qualified. But yeah, to your point, they signed him last year. I don't think the plan was for him to be in Moncton more than he was. So
Yeah, and a little bit. I have 2 points here. Jack talking about RPI. RPI starting to build kind of their wagon over there. They just got a few nice commits. One being from Avon Old Farms, which was something that stood out. So watch for them to be an up and comer. But I found it very very funny how Bruins prospect Casper Nason. There are Miami, Ohio fans out there that are pissed that Miami, Ohio is not top 10 right now. And I swear, go look at the comments on Instagram under anybody who's posted the top 10. There are people who seriously think that Miami, Ohio, after going 3-28 and like 3, should be a top 10 team after beating Ferris State and RPI. I'm dead serious. But Casper Nason having a good season, so I don't really care.
yeah, 4 points in no, yeah, 3 points in 4 games or 4 points.
I constantly see him on whatever it is, Instagram or Twitter. I constantly see him putting up points, either an assist on the power play or a goal every once in a while. So it's good to see him. He was a big question for me. I think he is a point per game, but a big question for me during the offseason is like, why didn't this guy transfer? This team is horrible. And again, not saying that this team is good, not saying that Miami, Ohio is going to be good by any stretch. They play
You
two
mean
really
you're trying to say they are a top 10 team, right? That's what you're saying.
they I'm saying I do not think at all that this team is a top 10 team, and I don't think that they should be given any benefit, especially after last season, after playing two very very poor teams. But also, let's not forget, Casper Nason had a great start to the season last year as well, and then kind of fizzled off towards the end of the season. So, but to be fair, that's also how Miami played. They were very good at the start of the season. They won 3 games, other than their first, I don't know how many, and then they literally did not win for like the rest of the season. So, it's just
Yeah.
too much to be putting. But I did find that funny, and we are a prospect show, so why not talk about that?
Yeah, no, that's I mean, when you're a fan, it's short for fanatic for a reason. But yeah,
Nice try though.
I won't tell people how to fan, but at the same time, I will say you got to be a little bit more reasonable and realistic. So
Yeah,
it's 4 games. Let's not.
against
I don't.
very very bad opponents too.
Yeah, based on the first 4 games of the NHL season, the Bruins would be Stanley Cup champs, right?
Yeah, so let's just slow it down a little bit, but it is, I thought it was very funny.
Oh man. Anyway, um, I know we're trying to keep it a little bit shorter tonight than normal, but what else you got? I mean, there's games coming up this weekend. We'll talk about the upcoming slate here in the NCAA and whatnot. But what else have you got? Anything in particular? Since we're hitting the hour mark.
No, I think the only thing else is like I touched on it earlier. The AHL season's underway. Providence had a solid 2 games. Bridgeport played well. I mean, around the league, there's been some interesting stuff, but I mean, again, 2 games into the season, I'm not putting too much stock in anything, but the Providence Bruins, if you're a Bruins fan, they're all over the top 10, especially in scoring. So Fabian Lysell, Matej Blumel, Patra, Steves is up there. Merkulov's up there. And then for Bridgeport, Marshall Warren. So he had a nice weekend putting up 4 points and won AHL Player of the Week, by the way, which is pretty impressive considering Providence has 4 players that have like 4 points. So, yeah, other than that, it's been a fun first week in the AHL. Bridgeport had a great first game against Providence. Unfortunately, couldn't pull out the win. You talked about Zazacek earlier. I mean, he kind of was struggled the first half period and then really found his game. So good for him.
Yeah, he's shown his need for adjustments. You
Yeah,
know, he's still coming over, still learning the North American ice, still learning the North American game. Like this is why he was never considered for this year to be much more than a backup piece to DiPietro or Corpusalo should one of them have been lost through a waiver process or anything like that, which, again, that move was made pre-camp. So I still like his potential. I'm not writing him off by any stretch. This is just his adaptation, a period, getting used to the new game, essentially, the new angles and everything. So
yeah,
still looks good, though.
yeah. Looked great against Bridgeport. So
Let's take a look here for this weekend. I'm just trying to pull up the. We'll start with the AHL schedule. Is there? I know you're watching a lot of Bridgeport. You're doing a lot of stuff for Bridgeport there, but let's see. This weekend is the 17th. No games until tomorrow. Are there any games in particular that you already have earmarked? I know Providence and Bridgeport play tomorrow, so that one's on my marked list to watch as well. So
yeah, that one tomorrow is going to be a fun one. I think it's great to see. I mean, they battled the first game. It was nice to see Bridgeport pick up their win at home as well the next day against Belleville because that team struggled so much at home. Had the worst home record in AHL history. They were so bad. Another game Friday that I'm interested in watching is Lehigh Valley versus Cleveland. Cleveland, another strong team in the AHL versus Lehigh Valley, who is again, another strong team. I would also I might throw on from time to time Wilkes-Barre Scranton versus Hartford. Hartford still having we talked about Callum Tongue. I don't even think we talked about Callum Tongue here. I think we talked about him with Gail. Oh, maybe we did talk about it here because we were with Gail twice last week. So maybe this was it. But we talked about him being sent down to the ECHL.
yeah,
Like those are the 3 games that I'm looking at for Friday, Saturday. Obviously, gonna watch Bridgeport and Providence plays against Hartford, which is another good rivalry in the AHL. And then I've last season I watched San Jose a lot because of Colin Graff. I was really interested to see how he's playing. But now San Jose has a ton of incredible prospects down there, like Quinn Musty, who had a really solid first week as well. So probably we'll be tuning into that one, later. It's a 10 o'clock game, so that one's pretty easy. But those are basically the games that I'm looking at for the week.
yeah. Anything in the NCAA as well? Kind of catching your eye as well.
The NCAA games. I mean, there's definitely a few. You look at tonight, and there's definitely some NCAA games on because Saturday is.
Yeah, Robert Morris in Michigan, and then
Yeah,
Minnesota State, Wisconsin should be a good one tomorrow. I think an underrated one. I mean, I think a lot of eyes will be on Michigan State BU,
yeah,
and then Ohio State UConn should be a good one.
yeah,
Maine and Quinnipiac,
yeah. I hate to be a
and
homer and say like I said Bridgeport and Providence. Those are the games that I'm watching, but yeah, UConn, Ohio State. Maine, Quinnipiac, obviously, Michigan State BU is going to be a great game to see where those 2 teams kind of rank. Both teams, haven't really taken on crazy good opponents, so this is going to be,
yep,
iron sharpens iron here or whatever.
yep. Jack points out BU, Michigan State.
Yeah, and
I think an underrated one though is going to be Northeastern UMass.
yeah, I feel like though that those are going to be 2 teams that are very, comparable in Hockey East. It's gonna be nice to see who can take that one home. Which
Minnesota, North Dakota.
yeah, Minnesota. Jesus, dude, you guys have not given yourself an easy schedule. They started off with Michigan Tech, which is really no slouch, but and then you go straight to BC, and then you're going to Grand Forks to take on UND. I feel so bad for that team.
So another one that's going to be worth watching. You know me, I'm the goalie guy. UMass Lowell takes on Western Michigan.
Yeah,
So
Austin
Austin
Elliott.
Elliott gets a real test against Western Michigan.
Yeah, well, you also get to see two good goalies. You get to see Hampton Slokinski as well, who
Yeah, well, I mean,
Team
we know
USA
Western
national
Michigan is
champion.
established. We're going to see how Austin Elliott steps up
Yeah,
in that game. That'll be critical.
that would be a fun one.
And then Colorado College against Northern Michigan. Um, I mean, then you get some of the other small ones. Long Island, Penn State. Obviously, that one will have eyes because it's Penn State. Gavin McKenna, we talked about ad nauseum to start.
Yeah,
I mean, NCAA is going to be a very good watch this weekend. I'm going to try and catch some in the O as well. Now that those are also on Flow Hockey, I know today the only one was Peterborough and Oshawa, but tomorrow, what is it? You have Niagara and Erie. London's taking on Kitchener. That should be a good one. Sioux Falls St. Marie, or sorry, Sault Ste. Marie and Sudbury. There's Sioux Falls, and then there's, so yeah. I'm not French, so they're always going to trip me up. But Guelph and Owen Sound, Windsor and Sarnia, so some good
yeah,
games up there as well. That'll be worth watching. I mean, I'm so glad that the Q and the O are now on Flow.
I know. It makes it so much easier, saves us so much money on subscriptions as well. I always try to tune into Moncton at least once a week, because we have Craig keeping eyes on that, and I mean that Moncton team has a ton of United States guys, so especially a ton of guys who are from New England. So it's nice to see how those guys are doing throughout the season. So that's another team that I like to at least watch once a week. So Moncton Victoriaville is a game that I'll definitely tune in. Plus, those games are earlier; they're at like 3, which is nice. So
Yeah,
watch
yeah.
at 3, and then throw on an NCAA and an AHL game, and then finish the night with San Jose Barracuda. So
Well, this weekend I'm doing stuff. It's my daughter's birthday, so
yeah, oh,
sweet 16.
good
So
luck.
I don't know how much I'll get to the TV on Saturday, but Sunday should be pretty open, and then we'll have some catch up to play. But we'll catch some of them, I'm sure. So
You
any
can't keep
final?
you can't keep us away from the ring. Can't keep us away from the TV. You just
It's a hell of a lot
totally.
easier to keep someone away from the rink than it is the TV, though.
Yeah, no, you'll be sneaking games like an addict on the phone
You,
during the game.
background.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Step away. Watch some QMJHL games and stuff. You already know. You got it dialed
yeah,
in.
and we'll be doing some breakdowns too. I know I did a deep dive into deep. We talked briefly about Michael DiPietro. I had written a deep dive into his preseason, why he cleared waivers, like what exactly in his game that NHL scouts are seeing. I did work with, or I had it reviewed by, and chatted at length with a goaltending NHL scout. So we went over it before I put it out there, so it is accurate for those that don't want to believe my word. And at some point we are going to try to have a couple scouts on the show, and whatnot. I know I'm working very closely with Rinkside Advisors and Scouting in that department there. A lot of that's lower level, just because of age and stuff like that. But the analysis is the same. Whether they're 14 or whether they're 24, if a goalie's holding his glove low, he's holding his glove low. If they're not reading the play right, they're not reading the play right. So it's all the same stuff. It's just a matter of, can they get better at it, and are they showing flashes? That's why it's critical to watch more than just highlights. I know you and I have had that conversation. We've had the conversation with Dom. It's critical to watch an entire game. Because if you're watching a player just on highlights, you're saying this is what they did right here. Okay, but did they do it right every other time, or is this just the one time it worked so they scored?
Yeah, and not only that, watching it inside the rinks, when possible, going and seeing the guys who are, especially in warm-ups
Yeah.
and after goals, especially a goalie, because right, a lot of that stuff can come, far away from the play. So
Appreciate it. That's how it looks like Jack read it. Definitely appreciate the feedback on it, Jack. Would love to hear any other thoughts you have on it as well. I think we're going to do a few more of those. You and I are going to try to get some video to try and do some video breakdown as well. Um, do you have any other thoughts before we wrap this up? I know bees aren't on until 10 o'clock, but I promised you we'd get you out of here before then, and I still got to take care of some stuff before the game. So, you got anything else to wrap up?
no, I mean it was good. Like I said, very very busy week. It's going to continue to be busy, but it's always a great time to carve out an hour, hour and a half, talk about what we've watched throughout the week, and shout out Michael for his comments. Shout
Shout
out
out
you,
Jack
Jack.
for his.
It's nice to see you in the chat as well. I hope everything is going well at BNG. So you know, just I'm excited for another week of hockey.
Absolutely. We'll get to it this weekend, and we should be back next week. I don't see why we wouldn't be. Again, Gail, hopefully you're feeling better, and I'll see you on Wednesday with Gail for What's Brewing. I'm working on something hopefully for tomorrow for uh, for What's Brewing with probably with Court Lalonde. Um, we'll see. Nothing's it's set in stone just yet, but we're trying to arrange something just so we can get something out on this first couple weeks on the Bruins. So with that though, thanks everybody for tuning in. Jack, thank you. Hopefully we'll see you guys again in the chat. You especially, Jack and Mike for the comments. And with that, we'll see you guys next week.